This is our signature segment, the 5-3-1, where we each bring a top 5 list on a particular subject, argue it down to a top 3 list. From there, we move it to a top 1. This week, our top 5 list is on the top 5 best promo people in the game. My number 1 is obvious, Ric Flair.
Woo!
My number 2 is The Rock. My number 3 is Stone Cold. My number 4 is Jim Cornette. And my number 5 is The Ultimate Warrior. Ric Flair, The Rock, Stone Cold. I don't think you need to explain why any of them are good promos.
Nope.
Cornette, you shouldn't have to explain, but there is a much younger audience nowadays that if they're not familiar with Cornette, they may not be into Cornette and not have looked into the history of anytime this guy is asked to cut a promo on almost anything. It's, in my opinion, it's always 100%. It's always entertaining. It's always full of life. To me, he's the top guy in the game, next to Flair. The Ultimate Warrior, I just have a personal attachment to because when I was young, The Ultimate Warrior was so entertaining. Now when I go back and watch him as an adult, it's some of the most nonsensical stuff I've ever heard. Plus, I don't know if you guys heard the speech he gave at UConn, but his craziest promo, he tried claiming that queering doesn't make the world go round. So that was a recent thing he did in his promo work that really put him behind. Barely pulling the nose up on everything at that Hall of Fame before he died.
Yeah.
Dave,
his stuff doesn't age well. Who are my
Apparently
favorite?
not. Dave, who are your top 5 favorite promos?
My top 5. Joe, maybe we should have disqualified this guy from the list because a lot of times we do that when guys are just so good. Because I'm going with number 1, the Nature Boy. Woo! Ric Flair.
It's hard not to.
And, it's personal preference. He's the best. He's the man. It's funny you had The Rock in at number 2. I actually took The Rock off my list, even though he could be the goddamn number 1. Because all these guys are great promos. But number 2, I went with Dusty Rhodes, baby, the American Dream. All right, to me, outstanding promo. Number 3, Rowdy Piper. The guy had the best heel heat in the business at one point. Number 4, I went with a manager myself, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Awesome heel promo, awesomely entertaining. And number 5, the guy we had argued over a previous episode whether he should be in the top 2 or 3 on promos for managers. Paul Dangerously made my list on number 5 for promos.
This is the toughest list I have ever done in my life. I have crossed off and fought and put people on and then eliminated them and then put them back on, and I'm going to have to go with what a guy here. I crossed Ric Flair off my list.
Whoa! Didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Who was good enough? Who was better than Flair?
I replaced him with Arn Anderson.
Oh, Iron's a good one.
I didn't want to have 2 horsemen on there. I think in fairness, I could have had both of them on there.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to have 2 horsemen on there because I know that people that listen to this podcast know that we're big Horseman fans, and I didn't want it to be overly slanted.
What about Arn's promos made him go onto your list versus Flair?
Arn Anderson was one of those people, when he cut a promo, you believed everything he was saying to you.
His My Spot promo being the most famous.
If he said to you, not only that, he's the person who came up with the Horseman name.
Yeah.
He could be silly when he did the, I don't mean to toot our own horn, but toot toot.
Yeah.
I mean, he did promos that you believed it. Even when he was in the Dangerous Alliance, when he told you, hey, we're going to break your arm, I believed him. He was going to break my damn arm.
Oh, yeah. Great little one-line quips, too. I remember saying to Steve Austin one time, he's like, you like barbecuing? And Steve's like, yeah. And he goes, let's cook. And then he punched him in the face.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So who do you got after Arn on that?
I got Cactus Jack.
Oh, that's a good one.
And when I put Cactus Jack on there, I mean Mick Foley in general.
Sure.
But that's another guy. He would do a promo where he's tearing his own hair out. Mm-hmm. He did another promo where he's punching himself in the face until the point where he starts bleeding while he's telling you. And every time he did a promo, whatever his character was, he did it in a different style.
Sure.
That's whether it was the Dude Love, whether it was the Mankind. It could have been so easy to make Mankind and Cactus Jack similar. And he managed to make them very separate.
Actually, yeah, Foley was the guy who could have easily been number 1 on my list. I can't believe I forgot him.
He was doing the stuff in promos that Guerrero and Benoit were doing to themselves backstage, being that crazy, and really bringing that manic out of them.
And unfortunately, I think there's a group now who remember him as the cartoon character he turned into, where he's coming into the guy who's, oh, welcome to Cleveland! Yeah. But that's not the Mick Foley interviews that I remember.
No.
This guy is
ECW
insane.
stuff was insane, too.
Even when he was wrestling Vader, people make fun fun of all the time when he did the amnesia angle and he was in Cleveland trying to find Cactus Jack. But those promos are insane.
Yeah.
Another good one, Jake Roberts.
Oh yeah, Jake's
Not on anybody's list, but Jake Roberts, to me, he had that creepy voice. He scared the shit out of me as a kid because he was like that serial killer that might live next door. Now, those of us who grew up where we did, we grew up next to Michael Ross, so we grew up with a serial killer next door. But this guy could have actually...
Shout out to Michael Ross.
This guy could have been that guy. He was so calm when he was telling The Undertaker why he stuffed him in the casket. Yeah. When he was telling Hogan what he was going to do. When he described to Ricky Steamboat what it felt like bouncing his skull off the concrete. That's it was creepy.
Yeah.
That's
why you let Warrior get bit by a cobra.
Exactly. That's it was absolutely terrifying. Yeah. Obviously, I got Rowdy Piper like you do. We've talked about this in the past where I am a huge Rowdy Piper fan. Whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. He's another person who later on in life became a bit of a caricature of himself.
Sure.
But his early work, if you check him out in Georgia Championship Wrestling, check him out in the Portland organization.
I saw something with him breaking an actual beer bottle over his head a couple weeks
That's
ago.
actually from Portland. That was when he was feuding with Buddy Rose. He took a beer bottle and said, "How are you going to hurt me?" and actually broke a beer bottle over his own skull.
Right.
And now, here's another one who didn't make anybody's list, but quite frankly, to me, passed away way too early. Brian Pillman.
Was actually considered to be on my list.
Yeah. Brian Pillman, to me, a lot of what I saw later on in Steve Austin, when he did get better on his promos later on, came from a similarity to Brian Pillman, where he blurs that line of reality and is able to actually really convince you that what you're seeing in front of you is legit.
All right, let's try to narrow this down here a little bit.
So we got Flair on 2 list. I feel like he moves on.
I think so.
Piper's on 2 list. He moves on.
Here's the hard one.
We're going to take Cornette from 1 list. Jake Roberts from another list.
Oh, Dusty.
Although it is hard to beat Dusty. I mean, has anybody gone farther with the gift of gab than Dusty Rhodes?
Yeah.
3 world titles.
He did a lot with the personality he had. I don't know if he'd be, but I mean, to me, it's kind of Cornette, Heenan, Jake Roberts of people that haven't made it on every list.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So who do you guys like better out of those 3?
Dusty.
Okay, so
unfortunately, producer Joe, we both agree on Dusty.
All right, Dusty moves on.
And here's the way I'm going to get this over. I know Dave a lot of times likes to quote other talent, but any professional wrestler who has ever worked with Dusty Rhodes, if you ask them who's responsible for the best promos in the business, they will tell you about Dusty Rhodes.
True, he did run the promo class at NXT. Yeah. So now for a top 3, we're down to Flair, Piper, Dusty.
Now this is where...
Oh, wow. Oh, woof.
Who's the first one out?
I think Joe's got rid of Dusty.
What a great triple threat match this would have been. Wow.
So, can we agree on...
Does Piper drop out just because Flair and Dusty are such a powerful 1 and 2?
I don't know.
Flair being
I
the
know
most
you're going
in
with that.
people's and memories, but Dusty being arguably the one with the greatest talent.
Before we whittle this one down, I want to make it clear that no matter who actually wins from this one, we're all winners for getting to hear these 3 guys do promos.
Sure.
That's,
a lot of those other guys that we mentioned too could easily be on this list. The fucking Rock.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was all right.
These were all heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I think at this point we do have to kind of go a little bit with our preferences, just because they're all so great. I don't think we can say necessarily one's better than the other one.
I'm going to eliminate Piper, actually. Piper as a character to me was more over, but when I look at his promos and stuff like that, Piper's promos were good, but there's times where they weren't good.
Yeah.
Flair and Dusty to me, I don't remember many bad promos from Flair and Dusty. I actually don't remember any right now, but I mean, I'm not saying it never happened, but yeah.
I actually agree with you. I am going to eliminate Piper, but I do want to say this for Piper. Without Rowdy Piper doing the promos that he did in the mid-'80s, I'm not sure that the Hogan era works as well as it does.
Actually, freaking On Fire Babyface Dusty and an On Fire Heel Piper promo back in the day could have been magic.
Exactly. So I do want to give Piper all the credit in the world there. Obviously, Piper Pit, one of the greatest segments of all time.
So now we got to look at this here. We got Dusty and Flair. What's more important? The guy who got the heat? The kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing son of a bitch, or is it the coming man, baby?
And it's tough because both guys, I would say, it's arguably an NWA versus NWA debate. They both had WWE time, but I wouldn't say their promos there stood out.
Let's make this clear too. This isn't who's the greatest, who's been on top more. Yeah. That's, Ric Flair's had the most success.
Yeah, and is by far a better wrestler.
Right. But we're talking about just promos, just captivating an audience.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's not Dusty.
So now here's the reason why I'm going to go for Flair.
Okay.
This is very easy for me. Flair, to me, a lot of what he did was original. Mm-hmm. His promos were his promos. He was doing it. Dusty Rhodes, to me, was a sampling of John Wayne, Billy Graham.
Wait a minute now. Dusty might have did it before Billy Graham.
He may have. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But he was more pulling from a stock of pre-made lines.
Exactly.
Pre-written stuff. Flair was doing promos in his underwear.
Let's go
dropping elbows on his
Let's
suit.
talk about this for a second, though. Let's give. I'm not saying I'm going to disagree. I might be leaning towards Flair, but I want to throw this out there. Flair tried to be Dusty Rhodes. It was Dusty Rhodes who told Ric Flair, "Go be Ric Flair."
But, like I said before,
I guess I'm shooting holes in some of what you're saying. I think Dusty might be just Dusty.
But and I think he is to a point, but even he has said, and Jim Ross on his podcast has also said, Dusty Rhodes basically thought of himself as John Wayne.
But that's a good thing in some ways, though.
It is.
He convinced himself and believed that gimmick. Now, I will say this, though. I guess at the end of the day, and we're talking shades here, but what's closer to a damn shoot on who they really are? Well, for better or worse, that would be the Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Yeah, although the people, once again, who have known Dusty say that no matter when you ran into Dusty Rhodes, there was no more Virgil Runnels.
Actually, I will tell us a quick story I heard on a podcast one time when Paige was giving an interview that she was in NXT trying to be herself, and somebody higher up had tried to change her look, and basically Paige had put something on, some kind of jacket or something she didn't feel comfortable doing, and an executive had mentioned it. It was a little higher up, and Dusty came by and saw it, and the executive was there, and Dusty just said, "What the hell you got that shit on for, baby? You look like shit. You my Dragon Queen. Get that stupid shit off." And Paige was like, Dusty didn't give a fuck who he offended.
Is Dusty the best promo since he was Flair's inspiration?
Oof. That's a good question.
Because I didn't think about that till just now when you mentioned it. Because part of the credit you should get is your promo. But I think also the influence you have on others should be a part of it. And if you inspire the best,
by the way,
doesn't that partially make you?
By the way, quickly, shame on us for Billy Graham not actually being on anything.
That's a good point. That's super
but you know what? I'm going with Dusty Rhodes. I was gonna go Ric Flair.
Yeah.
I'm going with Dusty Rhodes. I grew up in Florida. I can tell you the impact that Dusty Rhodes had on the Florida Championship Wrestling in the NWA. We don't have the NWA wrestling of the mid '80s without Dusty Rhodes. So you know what? American Dream. You got my vote.
All right, so Dusty wins this week's poll. We want to know what you guys think. Find us on Twitter @FansWorking. The Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. The email, workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. You can listen to us, as always, on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. The important thing with those last two is please subscribe, rate, and review. And Randy, Player FM's coming soon, if we haven't already got it under our belt.
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback. 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know, and let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.